we'll do a review of Lekutei Sichos in Chelek Yutes in volume 19. This is the second Sicha for the Parshas of Ha'azinu. This Sicha is a Rashi Sicha towards the end of the Parsha of Ha'azinu, and the end actually of the Parsha of Ha'azinu, in which the Pasuk uses the language that before Hashem sends up Moshe Rabbeinu, says to him to go up to Har Hevorim, in which Moshe Rabbeinu is going to pass. So the Pasuk says that Hashem speaks to Moshe Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh. So the Rashi will bring down the different places in the Torah where it says Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh and what they mean. But the Rebbe is going to ask how and why does Rashi have to bring down the other ones. And the Rebbe is going to explain very interestingly how we have a special issue over here in Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh. And also the Rebbe is going to explain what does Rashi mean when Rashi says that the Yidden are going to not allow for Moshe Rabbeinu to pass on. How could they prevent that? The Rebbe explains that what they were meant is that they're not going to let him go up to Mount Evorim, because the pasuk says over here that go up to Mount Evorim, Alei al Har Evorim Hazeh Umuzbahor. So what they're going to prevent him is going to be from going onto the mountain. And then it's going to be another interesting lesson. For this, as we'll see in the Sikha. Let's go step by step. Ois Aleph. In Siyum HaSedra, in the end of the Sedra, Vert der Zelt, it is recounted, the Torah relates, by Daber Hashem el Moshe be'etzem hayom hazeh. Hashem speaks to Moshe in the etzem, in the middle, in the essence of this day, Leimer. What does Hashem tell him? Alei el har ha'avorim hazeh. Go up to this Mount Evorim, which is Har Nevoi, the mountain of Gomer. Umuzbahor, and you will die on the mountain Gomer. Stellt sich Rashi, if the Werther, so Rashi places himself on the words. By Daber Hashem el Moshe be'etzem hayom hazeh. Hashem speaks to Moshe in the middle of this day. When is mefarish, and Rashi explains, begimu mekoymes nemar be'etzem hayom hazeh. 3 times we find that the pasuk says in the middle of the day. Bringt arob die andere 2 Erter, and then he brings down the 2 other places, wo das wird gesagt, where this was said. So beim Areingehen von Noach v'chulu in der Teva, when Noach, etc., the family went into the ark, over there the pasuk says be'etzem hayom hazeh bo Noach v'gomer, and then by Yitzias Mitzrayim, also by the exodus of Egypt. The pasuk also says be'etzem hayom hazeh Hashem, that in the middle of the day, etzem hayom hazeh, Hashem took out the Bnei Yisrael. And Rashi says, "Was kishem vidorten meintes," just like over there, what it means. As Bnei Doide shel Noach und die Mitzrim haben gesagt that they said, "V'kach." So by Noach's generation, when he was going into the Teva, into the ark, so why does the pasuk say over there? So that the people of the generation of Noach and the Egyptians said, "V'kach," in the meantime, such and such, im onu margishim v'chulu, if we're going to feel, we're not going to allow them. And they added, not only we're not going to allow them, but rather we were going to take axes and other, and we're going to break the teva. Which means not only won't they let him now, but also in the future, there's going to be no teva over there. As Arain in the as Noach's Arain in the teva, they're not going to allow for him to enter the teva. And the same thing is they said by Mitzrayim, when the pasuk says Mitzrayim, unit los naroisgin iden from Mitzrayim, and they are not going to allow the Yidden to live Mitzrayim. That was the argument of the people of the generation. Rashi is ma'irich in the protei Hadvarim, Rashi goes into length in the details of what they said, how they're going to prevent them from going to the Teva, how they're going to prevent them from leaving Mitzrayim. The Rebbe is going to deal with it, explain it out later on, all the details. But here, the Rebbe just wants to bring down the general idea that Rashi brings down, that we find this is in 3 places. And over there, Rashi gives you why it says of the Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh, because was a people by the Teva and Mitzrayim that didn't want to allow for this to take place. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Hashem says, Hareini, I am going to B'chatzi Hayom. In midday, Be'etzem Hayom means midday. So anybody who has the strength to protest, let him come and protest. Let's see. And then the Rebbe and the Rashi brings out, this is also what takes place when Moshe is passing. As the Eden Hamdan Gezok, that Eden said then, we're not going to let him die. When Rashi brings the Kama Toivus was Moshe the Giton for Eden. Rashi brings many of the favors. Why the Eden wouldn't let him die? Because these favors that was Moshe Giton for Eden. I'm going to bring him in the middle of the day. So the Rebbe Bekitzer brings down the Rashi, and the Rebbe is going to address details in the Rashi later on. But Bekitzer, this Rashi is explaining to us why the pasuk says Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh. Just like over there, the Yidden were saying, or the people were saying that we're not going to let Noach, we're not going to let the Yidden go out of Mitzrayim, and Hashem says Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh. It's not going to help you middle of the day. If you can stop, let's see. So the same thing over here, the Eibishter writes, basically, that if the Yidden say we're not going to let Moshe Rabbeinu pass, Eibishter says, let's see. Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh is going to do it, and nobody can stop the Eibishter. So again, later we're going to see the details, all the details in the Rashi that the Rebbe asked and explained so beautifully at the end of the Sikha, and also the Dibur HaMaschil, the Rebbe explains towards the end why Rashi has to bring down also by Dabar Hashem El Moshe in the quote of the Pasuk. But here the Rebbe starts to explain what is this Rashi need an explanation in the first place. What's difficult? It seems like the Rebbe explains that the words Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh are extra, superfluous. We don't need those words here, because we know already when it was that Moshe Rabbeinu was saying this Yom Malui, that he turned 120, the Pasuk said before in Parshas Vayelech, and this is a Hemshech, so we know that that was the last day. And what are we trying to add here with the Be'etzem? So Rashi is looking for an explanation that the Pasuk has to say this, so let's see who can stop based on what Rashi saw in the other places. So those was Rashi dar b'chlal zuchen hapirush Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh. This that Rashi needs to look for an interpretation. What Etzem Hayom Hazeh is moving in pashtus. That's is understood very simply. Because it seems that these words of Etzem Hayom Hazeh are extra. It says already in the beginning of this subject, and it starts this part of Azinu follows the parsha of Vayelech. It says, I turned 120 today, is doch in dem Tag nifter geworden, and that was on the day that he turned 120, he died, he passed away, nifter geworden. For statements showing, so we already understand, as alt was passiert noch dem, that everything that followed from Hanoich Hayom 120 was a Bazinot is given by Etzem Hayom Hazeh, was by Yom Hazeh, was in that day. Now, we're saying here Be'etzem, Etzem is at midday, but when Oibtzuli Be'etzem, Manaf K'minu from them. So Rashi's problem is, so that it was Hayom Hazeh, we know. Maybe the person there was Be'etzem, midday. Why? What difference does it make that it was in midday? So Rashi has an issue. Why does the pasuk tell him Be'etzem Mazeh? If it's because of Be'etzem, that's what we don't know that it was at midday. My nafkamina from that. Why do we need to know this? What difference does it make? The Riber Zokt Rashi. That's what Rashi tells us. As das kommt mit Ramezayin, that what it's coming to hint to us, as Eden haben das Ptiris Moshe nicht gewollt lassen. That the Jews did not want to allow for Moshe's passing. Und als if them, hat der Eibishter gesagt, and as a response to that, Hashem says, Hareini machnise bechatzi hayom b'chulu, I'll bring him in the middle of the day, and let's see if you can stop. Okay, so this we understand what Rashi comes to tell us. But Ava b'fashtein, we need to understand it. How were they going to stop? Mele by Noach, they're going to stop Noach from the table and break the table. Mitzrayim, they're going to stop them from going out. But how are they going to stop Moshe Rabbeinu from dying? Bishleima. We understand that the people in Noach's generation, having gekent meinen, they could have thought, as they seine bekoyach ob zu halten Noach's reingehen in the table, that hey, they had the power to prevent Noach from entering into the table. Euch die Mitzrim haben sich gekent einreden, also the Egyptians, they could have convinced themselves, as they will nicht the laws and the Yidden came from Mitzrayim, that they won't allow for the Yidden to leave Mitzrayim. Since they were the majority. Aber wie ist es shaykh? How does it apply? As Eden soll meinen, that Eden should think, as they will uphold Pitirosa Shel Moshe, that they're going to stop Moshe from passing on. As was is in ganzen nit bidei boss of them. This is not something which is up to human beings, whether the person should die or not. How are they going to stop him? The next question is, Rashi doesn't have to bring all the other cases. He could have just said that the reason why in this place it says Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh is because Hashem says nobody can stop me. If I say that Moshe Rabbeinu is going to die, nobody's going to stop me, and it's the middle of the day. Let's see who can stop me. Why do we need evidence that it's in other three places? Based. So it was that Rashi mevayer zayin. Why is it necessary for Rashi to explain, to articulate as begimul mekoymes nemar be'etzem hayom hazeh, that is three places. It said be'etzem hayom hazeh. Und noch bringen die ganze Ariches bescheiches zu the andere beis mekoymes. And Rashi also brings down the lengthy discussion, lengthy idea as it relates to the other two places. Rashi should have seemingly translated the simple meaning of the pasuk. Just our verse. As Eden haben sich nicht gewollt erlassen. Eden haben nicht gewollt erlassen die Petire von Moshe. The Jews did not want to allow Moshe's passing. And Hashem said, "No, let me see." We see already in another place that Rashi doesn't go into the detail. In the second time by Mitzrayim, Rashi doesn't explain why it says Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh. So that means because Rashi relies on what he said in the first time by Noach, where Rashi does explain. So how come in the third time over here, Rashi has to bring down both times Darichas? So Befrat, as a tut azay b'pirusha the Werter b'Pashas Noach, that he does so in his explanation of the word Noach, where is Mefarish. Meaning he goes through at length, where is Mefarish, Limda HaKosuf, the Pasuk is teaching you, Shahayu b'nei doire v'chulu, the generation we're saying we're not going to allow. Hashem, I'm going to bring him in front of everybody's eyes. Doesn't bring any evidence or proof to this. And he doesn't bring any example from elsewhere. That this is the meaning of Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh. He just touches there. So why couldn't Rashi just touch it like this? Noch mehr, even more. Kolshke bekam a chayim. But for sure, in our case, which is the third time, if he didn't need a proof the first two times, is kolshke bekam a chayim. Mad of them erst to mo. That since we see that even the first time, as there is that he explains that he explains these words. He doesn't need a example and a proof. Allah has come the written most for sure the third time. And Nachmer, as mentioned earlier. In Parshas Boy is Rashi gar nicht mefarish from Posuk. Over there, Rashi doesn't explain anything on Betzim Yemazeh. But Pashtus, why doesn't he explain? Is there time? The reason is because he relies of sein Pirush on his commentary in Parshas Noach. And the person is Farvos do be Parshas Seinu. So how come by us in our Parsha Dafer Yem Mefarish Zayin? Was the pasuk may meet Betzim Yemazeh? Why is Rashi need to explain what the pasuk means? And he has to bring, so Bechlal, he has to explain it. We already know what Betzim Yemazeh generally means. And he has to bring proofs. And he has to bring this with examples and proofs in a great length. So this all tells us that while it's easier to explain the meaning that in Betzim Yemazeh, in Parshas Noach and Parshas by Mitzrayim, but it's not so simple to explain it over here. And the Rebbe is going to explain over here is a different story. Over there, we're talking about, as we're going to see, talking about Rishoyim. Over here, we're talking about Yidden because of their love to Moshe Rabbeinu, so it's a different thing. And we'll see, and the Rebbe will explain. Muslims sagen, so we need to say, as in unser Pasuk is that Pirush nit glatik, that in our verse, this interpretation is not so smooth. But since we find the meaning of the same words in andere mekomis and other places, is das so then that's evidence as azoy in euch in unser pasuk is the Pirush azoy. And also in our verse, this is the meaning. Was der Fan is Rashi medayik zu sagen. See, that's what you see, that Rashi is very specifically says the word noch narobringen die dugmois von Noach Mitzrayim. After Rashi brings the examples from Noach and Mitzrayim, Rashi says with afkan chulu, also over here, as if to say that this is proof that by us this is the pshat as well. Need we in Sifri, Rashi changes it to Sifri. The Mokar from the Pirush Rashi, which is the source of Rashi. Wo steht by Yitzias Mitzrayim. Over there it says like it says by same like it says when they went out Mitzrayim. Why did he see here to say that's me? I'm just asked the question. But and he answers it by itself, but Rashi no. Rashi says Afkan to say like there. This part Rashi is saying it to madgish sein, to emphasize. As Eshnog, then we make it find as Azoy is the Pirush. By Noach Mitzrayim, that only after we find that this is the meaning by Noach Mitzrayim is Afkan the Pirush Azoy. So here too, this is the meaning. So that's the general question on the Rashi. Now the Rebbe is going to ask several details. You see the Rashi, the whole land. The Rebbe is going to go through the whole Rashi. Base. There are many pointers and questions that we can ask in the specifics in the Rashi's language. And the Rebbe is going to mention several of them. Aleph. Number one. By Noach Mitzrayim is Rashi nit mefarish ki in the timing. By Noach Mitzrayim, Rashi doesn't give any reasons. I was b'nei Doresh Noach on the Mitzrayim. Why the Egyptians and the people that lived in Noach's generation And the Egyptians, why they said, we don't need a reason there. Because it's self-understood. Why? Because they were Rishoyim. But why does Rashi need, and Rashi does that, need to explain the Toivers was Moshe Giton for Eden, those favors that Moshe did for Eden, was to leave them, of Eden gesagt in the Manich Moshe. We're not going to let him. So Rashi goes through the details, what he has done for them. Why do we need the details over here? Why would it not be just understood, self-understood? It would be obvious. The Eden didn't want the Moshe should die without going through the reasonings because he did them favors. Another issue, by Noach Mitzrayim is Rashi sich nicht mistapik mit dem, was gesagt, Einon Manichim Chulu, ki beniden de Dan. Over there, Rashi is not satisfied. Thus doesn't say that the Noach, the Derish of Noach and Mitzrayim said we're not going to allow. That's what it says over there. Or there is Moisiv, like it says by us, by Moshe. There is Moisiv. By Noach he says, not only did they say we're not going to let him, but they said, we're going to take these kishilim, these weapons, or these tools that are called kishilim. I will explain later on exactly what these kishilim are. The kardumas and axes. And we will split the ark. So Rashi adds, not only they're not going to let them go, but they're going to break the ark. By Mitzrim, it says, not only will we not let them go out, we'll take swords, we'll take ammunition, we'll take weapons, we'll kill them. We'll kill them. Does haste, which means as need, not they need their loss. Not only will they not allow for the entrance and the exit, nor they are going to actually, the Knesset means going into the Teva. Yitziyah means going out of Mitzrayim. So that means that not only they're not going to allow going to the Teva and exit Mitzrayim, they're also going to take away, they're going to remove the possibilities for entering to the Teva and going out of Mitzrayim. They're going to split the Teva, you can't go into the Teva, there's not going to be no Teva. And they're not going to be there to go out of Mitzrayim. So, but here it just says, when it talks about Onu, it says we're not going to let him go. It's not only V'lo Oidovi. And then within those two, the examples that Rashi says they're not going to let them because we're going to break it, Rashi uses two examples. Kshilim v'kardumas. Sayofes u'chlizayin. What is the Gimel? What is the Tam? What is the Reisov Gufa? What's the reason that within this edition, the Mont Rashi Tzvei Protim. Rashi mentions two details. Sai by Noach and Sai by Mitzrayim, both by Noach and by Mitzrayim. By Noach, Aleph, he says two, Kishilim v'kardumis, these Kishilim tools and the axes. And by Mitzrayim, Sayof is Aleph, base, place, Ayin, swords and ammunition. Why two? It's third question. The fourth question is, by Noach and Mitzrayim, bringt Rashi the ganzen Siyum. Over there, Rashi brings the entire conclusion. It says, let's see what we can do. Anyone who has the power to come and protest, let him come and protest. But in our case of Moshe Rabbeinu, I'm going to take it in half a day. It says, etc. By Mitzrayim, since by Egypt, Rashi writes the conclusion. Specifically, he brings it out, he mentions it clearly. Nicht verlassen sich auf dem, was hat gesagt für die Wanechen. not relying what he just said by Neuchen, that we're not going to allow him. So how come in the last case he's only saying it, etc.? Either by Mitzrayim and over here, right, or in both of them, to specifically articulate and say what Hashem said is going to happen, that He's not going to allow them. Rashi, number 5, that I was going to ask, why does Rashi choose specifically those favors that Moshe Rabbeinu did for them? And Rashi rechnet the tevis. Those Moshe Rabbeinu had giton for Yidden. The favors that Moshe Rabbeinu did for the Yidden. For was kleibt is Rashi davke di tevis? Why does Rashi choose specifically these favors? What does Rashi mention? Otzionu Mitzrayim took us out of Egypt. He split for us the sea. He brought down for us the manna. And he brought us the slav, the birds. And he brought up the well. And he gave us the Torah. Those are the mentions that Rashi mentions. Tzias Mitzrayim, splitting of the sea, bringing out the mon, bringing the slav, bringing the be'er, and giving the Torah. In Meshach von der Arboim Shona was Yidden seine given in Midbar during the 40 years that the Yidden were in the Midbar. There was additional many favors that Moshe did for the Yidden. As for example, sweetening the bitter water in Mora, kibuch erev sichen ve'oig, kakrin land of sichen ve'oig. So why does Rashi specifically say this? Could have counted more, but involved the Rebbe says even more. Noch mehr, even more than this. In Sifrido steht auch Bosselon Mismugvuras. Over there it also says he did for us miracles and strength. Pavosidos Rashi mashmit. So why does Rashi skip that? Why does Rashi take that out? He mentions the details and he doesn't add Bosselon Mismugvuras, which would include everything. Now the Rebbe says, I'm not asking that Rashi should quote the Sifri. Rashi is his own commentaries explained, but the question is, and here it makes sense for Rashi, it would seem, to mention that. Uluvayr, to explain. Hagam has the loshuf of Pirush Rashi. Even though this language of Pirush Rashi, Vosinim Zayin Yukmanal, in which we have these questions above, is going to move from Sifri, it comes from Sifri. Yibal Dober Rashi is Mefaris Shudash Rashi explaining, according to the simple meaning of the verse, Ubifrat as Rashi done it mitzayin as the Pirish is from Sifri. Especially Rashi doesn't point to here that this is taken from Sifri. Muzman zogen, then we have to say as the Allah Diyukim seine Masbir Shutish Mikra. So we have to say that all these particulars that the Rebbe mentions explain the simple meaning in the verse. Zayin. Rashi b'Pirush is b'Farish blows the Werter b'Etzem HaYemazeh. Rashi only explains the words Etzem Yemazeh. Favos is mighty and Adibur Amaschel. So how come when he quotes from the verse, he also quotes Euch the Werte by Dabar Hashem al Moshe, also the words that Hashem spoke to Moshe.